Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Touchpoint Group Banking App Insights section. And we're moving across the pond, as they say, looking at the UK banks. And this very traditional segment has, while there has been fluctuations in the actual ranking scores for each of the individual banks, there's been consistency in the actual ranking positions for quite some time. So let's look at customer sentiment and the themes that are coming through, showing why they're ranking where they are. Tony Patrick, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Glenn. So today we're looking at UK banks. So Lloyds, Barclays, NatWest, Nationwide, Santander UK, and HSBC UK. So let's just jump in and look at our normal perspective on how these scores are going, what's going on. So now one of the things we've seen previously is the HSBC jump in July. So a massive jump in July, but that has gone down a bit and softened, and they're sitting at around 3.5 month on month. In essence, apart from that jump up, they've retained their position as in place in this particular data set here. So what we're looking at here is also there's one of these banks here, like Santander, does have a bit of fluctuation going on. They did jump down in July, but you can see elsewhere they're moving down. So they dropped in May, they've jumped back up twice from August to September and down slightly in October. So, again, there's some variations coming through there, as compared to others we're seeing, and also compared to what we can see up here with Lloyds. So Lloyds, since one dip in March, but pretty much it's fairly flat across time. So they're doing very well in what they're achieving in terms of that. I'll just remove HSBC so we can get a bit of a feel, because that ruins the scale to some extent. But we can see here that sort of movement it extenuates the movement when I change the scale. But again, Lloyd's has pretty much remained fairly flat at about 4.4 to 4.5 across time. But what I might do is there's interesting, one of the things, we can see the fluctuations happening for Santander. Let's have a quick look at their release schedule. So let's have a look at what they're up to. Before I do that, actually, this is interesting. So before we even step into that, just some context globally, or this is just a UK, US centric view, but just having a look at where the UK legacy banks sit here. So looking at Lloyds, which is our first in this particular category, at fourth, Barclays 11th. We've got here then Nationwide and NatWest sitting there at 4.1 each. HSBC UK at 4. Santander and this is Q3, mind you. So this was when Santander had that big drop. So it actually include, but now they've actually picked that back up. So it gives you context though about where they fit and how they scale across from a global perspective. But what I want to do, as I mentioned before, is have a look at this from a launch perspective. So this is Santander, as we see they have some fluctuations. But this launch cycle here, it's not, I wouldn't call it, it's not chaotic in any sense, but it's infrequent is probably the best way to describe it. So we have a release in February. We then have one in potentially April, May, this green one here at 4.2. We then have one in June coming through at, this is 4.2, it's an update, 4.20.6. And then another one coming through in August, 4.21. So it looks like a sort of every 2 months, then Santander will come through and make that change. So let's compare this though to Lloyd's in this category. And one of the things you can see here is pretty much consistency. So pretty much every month you'll see a spike in a version coming through. 85, 88. There's a sort of an 86 in between. So every month there's sort of a launch coming through of various app versions. Now, for both of them, it's pretty good, because some others we see sub versions popping through as well as they try to fix various things coming through. For both of these, that doesn't tend to happen. We tend to, so someone uses the app, this version, it sort of drops away, and then they upgrade. So it's a positive thing. So potentially for Santander, that release cycle could potentially be updated frequency, just to make sure they're on top of things as they move forward. What I'd like to look at though is what makes these brands different. So this is looking just October. What are their scores? So looking at, we saw these up front anyway, but HSBC sitting at 3.5, Lloyd's sitting at 4.5 up there as well. So let's have a quick look though, from a high level perspective, what's actually going on with HSBC. So one of the things we can see is the customers are talking about a previous app version. They're talking about things like a date of birth, bad logout of the app, for example. So we can even dig into these. Now, these are reasonably small because looking at 1 month and one very specific thing, people are having trouble putting in their date of birth into the app. So it sounds like a small thing, but HSBC are over-indexing in a bad way on that particular topic. What we can also see, if I go back to my area across here, is we can also see something in here about bad logout of the app. So if I select that and have a look, I can quickly get a feel of this. It logs people out as they're trying to do things. So, not a very interesting thing for happen to customers in the middle of something, and they're trying to log them out straight away. So, again, there's some areas to improve for HSBC, and potentially they can sort of understand this a bit more detail to fix these things, because they are consistently below the others. Let's jump forward again into another one, which is Barclays. So again, their score is a lot higher, sitting above 4. But that doesn't mean they don't have any issues. There's still things going on in here compared to others where they do over-index. They're also having some issues with app updates. They have issues with making payments, etc., and also some with app bugs. Interestingly, what we see with the likes of when banks get above a certain level, potentially even 4 and above, and they have things like their bugs and security in order and login issues in order to some extent, then their actual journeys can shine. In this case, though, we're not seeing that. They still have some bugs, but we suddenly are seeing the making a payment via the app is still a problem. Generally the app payment feature is a problem for people. So they still need to pick up on these things. They need to improve on. These should have started to shine, but in fact they haven't. So that shows that these are a problem, even though customers can get to them. They're causing an issue for customers. Let's actually move forward, though, and have a look at Lloyds. So Lloyds is up there in terms of one of the global beta players. And here you can suddenly see, in this case here, they do have their login and their bugs under control. Then suddenly you see things like good app usability, good app performance, and all these things coming through, like the basics of I can now try good transfer between accounts, a good account-to-account transfer. So this is the type of thing Barclays could actually get to if they understood their journeys in a bit more detail. It can actually push that to the next level. So again, this is the sort of thing where others can learn about what best practice looks like and where you need to focus. So getting the foundations right is one thing, but if your journeys aren't performing, you're going to hit another barrier for customers as they go through that process. So lots to learn in here, particularly from Lloyds, but HSBC are probably the sitting behind, and they've got a lot to catch up on in this category.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tony. You can learn just as much from the laggards as you can from the leaders. So great insights there. And if you want to have a chat to us about your banking app, feel free to reach out to Tony or I.